I'm Christopher Sarro, president of Holt Construction. I'm proud to announce that the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, in partnership with American Airlines, URW Airports, has announced a $125 million commercial redevelopment of JFK's Terminal 8. As the project's construction partner, Holt Construction is pleased to partner with URW to introduce our new information and technical assistance program designed to connect you to opportunities available across the 24-month redevelopment of Terminal 8, all part of the Port Authority's $19 billion airport redevelopment program that is transforming New York's airport system. Working with our partners at the Port Authority, American Airlines, URW, and Phoenix Infrastructure, we have designed a special series of programs that will help you learn more about the project, the business and contracting opportunities that are right for your company, and how your business can participate. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to partnering together.
Hello, and welcome to today's session, Retail and Food and Beverage, the Art and Science of Managing Buildouts and Food Logistics. Retail and food and beverage buildouts, particularly in airports, differ from other types of general interior construction projects and require managing multi-phase logistics. This session today overviews what is required for working on these types of projects and how to set your firm up for success. Today, you'll learn how to present your firm's capability in this area, even if you have limited experience in retail and food and beverage construction. Then we'll discuss best practices for reviewing drawings, completing takeoffs, providing alternate materials to control costs and schedule, and other factors for submitting bids. You'll also have an understanding of field operations and the challenges that come with it, and navigate loading dock, delivery, material storage, airport job site access, work schedules, and more.
Hi, I'm George Cedeno. I am a senior estimator at the Aviation Department for Holt Construction in New York.
Hello, my name is Ronald Juarez. I'm the Director of Tenant Coordination for URW Airport, working at Terminal 8 project.
I am James O'Brien, Project Executive with Holt Construction in their Boston office.
James, how do retail and food and beverage buildouts in airports differ from the other type of buildouts outside of the airport?
So the overall principles of food and beverage buildouts remain consistent. However, space constraints and require efficient methods of placing MEP equipment. It requires detailed coordination with other tenants, with other facets within the airport, IAT, Massport, whatever the Port Authority is. You're also dealing with extremely stringent security regulations enforced by those airport authorities, work plans, details of the construction, those are all items that have to be in place and detailed out far in advance of getting boots on the ground.
And what project management capabilities are required to work on retail and food and beverage buildouts? And how can construction firms show competence in these sectors?
I think that you need someone who's highly motivated to bring all the groups together, because it's very important that you have the architect, the engineers, everyone on board and talking from day one. It can't be something that's just, oh, I sent an email, they'll get to it. It's something you got to follow up. You got to speak to them. You need everyone's input on a daily basis. Airports are chaotic environments, and you need someone who can kind of wrangle that in.
Ronald, what role does URW play in coordination with the GC and the tenants?
Great question. So the URW's primary role and purpose is really to present, shepherd, and guide each tenant through our design. We have a design criteria guideline that's actually going to set you up for success by following our guidelines. Also permitting through Port Authority of New York, New Jersey. As stringent as a jurisdictional that they have, they are their own Department of Buildings. They have their own Department of Police, Fire Department. So they really focus on what the life and safety of the airport is working here. The construction process, I mean, working in a live terminal, as James was mentioning, how different it is on the street. And also the construction schedule and how aggressive we're going to be looking at our schedule in order to achieve these timelines. The last place really is the safety, is how it is to work in the terminal, especially for our passengers, our airline personnel.
Thank you. James, Kind of going off of what Ronald said, with all the risks and all the items that we have to be kind of cognizant of inside the airport, what are some risks that inherit in airport and food and beverage build-outs, and how can those risks be mitigated?
I think the main risks are safety, security, tools. There is massive risk as far as a tool or a knife or something getting onto a plane. So those are probably the main risks we face on a daily basis. Also escorting, making sure that people are properly badged, personnel has the right, knows where they're supposed to go and where they're not supposed to go. Those are the main risks we face on a daily basis.
So the main risk for the airport is the passengers. It's being a live airport, live passengers, us not interfering with it. And then firms have to understand the security and the safety portion as well, and how to mitigate those risks within their companies, correct?
Correct.
Perfect. George, what are some best practices that you can suggest when bidding on retail and food and beverage build-outs, especially in working in the airport?
So for me, the biggest suggestion I can provide is transparency. One of the biggest issues that we have when bidding retail, food and beverage is that most of these items have to be precise. So if you have, for example, a product that's equal to what's specified, we would really want to know right from the beginning what you're providing, and the best thing to convey that is through communications. I use platforms like Building Connected that actually helps me talk to every one of the subcontractors in a one-on-one basis, because it directs a message to me, but it also directs a message to the project managers and whoever's in my team. The last thing is a clear estimate. So if you have a clear estimate with lines showing what you're providing, what you're qualifying, what you're excluding, those are the items that will get my attention, and we'll start that dialogue, and then we'll move forward on sustaining the bid as is, or we'll suggest or request further more pricing or more of a spec on that. But yes, transparency to me is the biggest one.
So takeaway from that for the audience would be communication. If there's questions, if there's something that they're not sure, to reach out to the estimators, and then just capture all the items on their bidding, correct?
Correct.
Perfect. Next question we have is for Ronald. Ronald, what is the main consideration for tenants working in a live terminal? Passengers, air operations, cleanliness. Can you elaborate on those specifically?
Sure. So the number one we got to remember is that we're working in a live active terminal. So working in T8 is we have active passengers coming through TSA. They're here because they're traveling through a vacation business, right? So we got to make sure that we're allowing their experience of traveling through the terminal that's the number one, right? They want to get to their gate, right? That's what's more important to them, is that make sure that they're getting on their plane to get to their next destination. So we really need to ensure that we're really following the rules of the terminal, right? As both our teammates here worked out, they said, look, it's always what's the securities, what's getting around the terminal, right? Following the rules of the terminal is really important, right? The biggest thing for us is also don't set off a fire alarm. The fire alarm is going to stop the airlines. It's going to shut down the terminal. So if you don't want to be on Fox News, CNN, or any of those type of newscasts, we do not want to be there. So let's not make sure we're not setting off fire alarms, because that is the big detrimental to the airport. Cleanliness. It's really, even though we're working construction, there's dust everywhere. But this is also somebody's house that we're actually with the passengers, the airport terminals here. So we want to make sure that our spaces outside of the doorway is always clean. Have walk-off mats, the sticky mats. Make sure that there's a brush room so that all the booths are, as well as cleanliness. So we don't want to have our tools to be dirty, right? We don't want to use the bathrooms as the cleaning tools, but we got to make sure that we have all the tools, everything clean before exiting and entering into the terminal. Last is also the escorting, the badging is we got to ensure, because security is going to be looking at who's badged, who's escorting, right? Why are you on the jetway? If you're driving your vehicle, we'll make sure you have an escort on there. And lastly, is really the work hours. So we can work 24 hours and 7 days a week, but just keep the noise level at a minimum. And also just ensure that, our passengers are not saying, what's that construction going on? We want to make a good experience. We want passengers to enjoy coming here, but understand, hey, we're making a better terminal for them.
I think the other item too, as well, that the firms should keep in mind is sometimes the hours may not be during the day. Some of them may be on the night shift, correct?
Yes, that is correct. So even though you might be, depending on the demo work, it might be done 3-4 hours, right? So you're going to have to get all that work within a amount of hours. But we also want to make sure that you're building in the timeline. Deliveries, if you're going to be bringing deliveries through here, we have set up at points of entry point for the deliveries to come here, but we want to make sure that it is marked during certain hours, and we'll be able to work with you on what time and that you're allowed to bring in materials.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ronald, for that. James, what are the key considerations for managing and maintaining schedules in the context of airport retail and food and beverage build-outs?
I think it still all falls back to collaboration, and to play off what George said earlier with what is being provided, making sure that if client is providing something like the food service equipment, that is something that some food service equipment vendors and suppliers, they've never worked in an airport environment before. So making sure that you get all those players together, have an understanding of what is needed and when it's needed, and making sure that all that's coordinated. So close coordination, it's something I keep bringing up, and it's something that I find so important in the airport environment, making sure that you're coordinating with every single piece of the puzzle.
And I think that's the major difference between airport versus street construction is we're dealing with many different, stakeholders, clients, there's different processes. We have to go from the top to the bottom. And as the GC, we have to reiterate that to everybody. So I think that's the major thing where airport is you're dealing with more teams than if you were just to do it on the street of New York City. And then our last question is for George. George, we always get these types of questions. Does airport retail and food beverage construction require any specific type of insurance? And if so, usually what's the average across the board for coverage?
So for a majority of projects, we have the insurance is similar to any other project. General liability works fine if your umbrella is where it meets the wear criteria. We usually have a criteria that we send out. There are projects that have OSIP or CSIP, and that will be taken care of by owners or a contractor. However, that does not mean free of insurance. It just means a part of this insurance will be taken care of by other people, either the client or the contractor. So with that in mind, we usually give out guidelines, and they come out usually with the bid package during the initial bid invitation to bid. Usually we'll tell you what we need to provide. We provide you, and you guys provide us. So that all comes out in the beginning of the package, and every project is different. It's not the same for everyone. It's not one project is the same from Terminal 1 to Terminal 8. They're all very different, and depends on each client.
Perfect. And kind of to go off on that a little bit is for the audience, don't be set on a specific type of insurance for all the projects at the airport. Again, like George said, it's dependent on the client and what they have, as if there's OSIP, if there's CSIP, if there's a standard type of insurance. Just be cognizant of that when you guys are going through your bidding, when you are bidding. And if there are specific questions in regards to insurance, reach out to the GC that you'll be working with, and they are the ones that will have the manual that explain to you what's required and so forth. So thank you, the three of you, for joining us today. This was very informative. And now let's go to our live Q&A. Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. So we have a couple of questions, and I'm going to start off with Ronald. So Ronald, how do you manage deliveries, airport access, and other coordination requirements?
Great question. So all the tenants and the GCs are going to be really responsible for just abiding all the security and the construction rules and regulations of the terminal. Right. So we got to ensure is one, we got to have the COIs, make sure that the insurances meet the limitations of port requirements, especially entering into the terminal, but also into the airside when the trucks have to go into the airside where the airplanes are. Right. We're going to have designated stage areas, right, where the materials can be dropped off. Dumpster locations are going to be placed as well as there. And then we're going to have selected doors for entering into the terminal and also the freight elevators, right? We don't want to use every elevator. We want to use specific ones to ensure that we have clear passageways to our workspaces. And if you're no badging, let's say if your subcontractors don't have a badge, well, don't worry. We've hired a company called ABM, which we'll partner with, and they will be able to escort, and you'll be able to work with them and ensure that everybody's secured and everybody's on the terminal. There's as well as some TSA checkpoints. We're going to be getting through checkpoints, so we have to go through TSA. There'll be specific times for that, but overall, it was like we want to ensure that deliveries are manageable, get here on time. Again, we're interactive at a terminal, so just ensure that we get timing wise there on time.
And then for the airport access portion, I know sometimes there's certain required documents that are required. What are some of the documents that are required for these employees to go through the TSA check-in to perform the work?
So you're going to be submitting in a security plan that tells us exactly who's going to be entering. It tells us what company, what are you delivering, and those will be reviewed, all submitted to your W when you're submitting those requests to get through TSA.
Perfect. And second question we have for you, Ronald, is what are the basic steps people need to consider for design build in an airport setting?
Yeah, so this is perfect. If you're retail or food and beverage, right, you're going to start off you're going to need to, what does it do? You're going to need to hire an architect, right? We need to get architects who are very familiar with the Port Authority process. We've actually worked with the Port Authority closely. We've worked out so we can mainstream the review process for expediting, right? To ensure our reviews aren't lagging like those typical TAA. So we work the process where we've short time the frame and we can be able to start construction once we get the approval. And as long as the architect has developed a good set of drawings, we'll be able to start construction. It's also very important that the contractors are also very familiar with the Port Authority and the process of the insurances and working in an active airport. So we also set up our construction spaces for retailers and food and beverage. We've given them guidelines. We've given the design criteria we've developed. We have a technical manual that is going to help all the architects to design the spaces in their spaces for their use. We got the construction rules and regulations. And lastly, of course, the TCAP from the Port Authority. That's their Bible. They need to ensure that the contractors, architects are very familiar with the manuals. We can easily provide them for you, and you can always request them through the email that we have provided. But the process is really set up for all the tenants to be successful, right? We want to make sure that you joined partnership with URW for this airport here. So we want to ensure that we drive you for success.
Great. That was a great answer. James, next question is, are there specific restrictions or requirements for retail businesses in airports?
So that's a good question. As far as the construction standpoint, to go off what Ronald had said, the aircraft safety, the safety plan is something that's super important as far as coordinating our laydown areas, access to site, how we're getting stuff in to actually do the build, avoiding the aircraft safety zones, closely coordinating that with the authority having jurisdiction, and just working together to make sure that we have all those restrictions accounted for at the beginning of the project.
Awesome. And then I know sometimes the GCs on these projects, especially in the airport, they'll get all the items that are required, all the documentations, and then they'll trickle that down to their subcontractors once they award. So be on the lookout for that if you do get awarded, whether it's with Holt or with the other GCs for the tenants specifically, they'll send you all the paperwork that you're required to fill out. And it'll have all the information, including access and security measures, lay down areas, and so forth. How will inventory and supply chain logistics be managed within the airport environment?
So that's another good question. This day and age, it's very difficult. Supply chain has been a bit of a disaster recently. So I think our biggest thing within the airports has been having a contingency plan in place for almost everything. If this isn't going to be here on time, what can we do to put something temporary in place, get it open, and come back as a day two? We pretty much have a contingency in place for anything that's long lead. We have a plan for day two items. If we can't open up with this particular item, we're just always thinking ahead and thinking, all right, if this doesn't come in, then what? So I think having a contingency plan in place, also having a detailed submittal log so you know what's coming, what needs to, when it needs to be on site. So having all that listed up front is huge.
And just to add a little more, if you're looking to switch because of long lead time, you always speak to URW, right? Especially with we could actually do an alternate of material, right? It's always good to communicate with us and say what is acceptable, right? We weren't sure as one is the designs always is sorry, but especially with these let's say if you're not getting it locally, it might be a long lead time. So we want to ensure that what is comparable to the design does not affect the change of design, because then that could go back to drawings and changes everything. So we can always talk about those items of alternate switching.
Awesome, thank you. Next question we have is, we just got approved as an ACDBE company. What is the next step for us to be at the airport? So best thing you can do is reach out to that info T8 at rfwconsultants.com email and just let them know that you're interested in becoming a tenant at the airport. They will then get you in touch with the correct parties. It's a little different. This is specific for construction. The ACDBE is on the leasing side, correct, Ronald?
Yeah, that's correct on the leasing side.
So just email that and email RFW at that email, and they can kind of give you the direction of where to go, how to go. You can also look at the website as well. There's I think there's instructions on there on whom to contact in regards to that specifically. Next question is about medical requirements and medical treatment for construction workers and who's responsible for it. So everybody has their safety officer. There's always going to be a safety officer on the job site. The safety officer is the person that is kind of responsible if something were to happen, if there are specific needs needed, or if there's specific material in regards to medical or safety that is needed. So it would be the safety officer that would be responsible for that, for the subs, for the GCs on the project. Next question is, how can we get on the bidders list? George, I'm going to throw this one over to you.
Sure. So the best way to get on our bidders list is to give us your information. We need to get you through a pre-qualification process before you get to bid to us and more so start work with us. So best thing to do is give your information, send email, or send us any of your company. Someone will get a hold of you with the proper documents to get you to fill out, and then you'll be on the bidders list shortly after that.
Yep, and it's that info T8 email. You send them an email just noting that you're interested in bidding on the project, whether it's with Holt, whether it's with the tenant and their GC as well. I would suggest to submit your capability statement as well if you're not pre-qualified with Holt or any of the other GCs. Next question is if you provide professional services in small businesses, do you know what type of insurance is required? So the insurance portion is very dependent on the project, the scope of work, as well as what the client requests at this time. I'm not sure what it may be, but once that comes out and once you get awarded, you will get you'll get the manual, you'll get the insurance requirements for the project specifically. Next question we have is, do you have an initiative to do businesses with MWBEs? So as we're all aware, port is very, very, there's a requirement for port for MWBEs. So yes, every person that's working out at the airports are working with MWBEs, local businesses, SDVOBs, and so forth. If you are interested in working with us, again, just send that email. RFW will get you in touch with the correct persons for the proper scope that you're doing, and then we could go from there. I would suggest, just to make sure, that if you do have an MWB certificate, or if you are planning to get an MWBE certificate, please visit the Port website. They have instructions on how to go about obtaining your Port Authority MWBE certificate. Those are all the questions that we have received today. If anybody else has any questions, or if there's anything you need clarity on, please reach out to that info.t8@rfwconsultants.com email, and they'll get in touch with us. Other than that, I hope everybody enjoyed this session and have a wonderful day. Bye, guys.
Thank you.